In just 47 seconds, America's sweetheart Julia Roberts would transform from gracious guest to absolutely livid celebrity, storming toward the exit of Jennifer Hudson's talk show, in what witnesses are calling the most explosive on-air meltdown in daytime television history. What started as innocent questions about Roberts' latest film project quickly spiraled into a vicious personal attack that left the Pretty Woman star seeing red and Jennifer Hudson scrambling to control the chaos erupting live on national television. The tension was thick from the moment Julia Roberts walked onto the set. Something felt different about Jennifer Hudson's energy that night. There was a sharpness in her voice, a calculated coldness behind her usually warm smile. The audience sensed it too, shifting uncomfortably in their seats as Hudson introduced her guest with what sounded more like a challenge than a welcome. Please welcome the legendary Julia Roberts, who's here to talk about her new movie and apparently some other things we need to discuss, Hudson announced, her tone carrying an edge that made Roberts' eyebrows furrow as she settled into the guest chair. Roberts, ever the professional, flashed her million-dollar smile and waved to the audience. Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer. It's always a pleasure to be here. But Hudson wasn't interested in pleasantries. She leaned forward, her posture aggressive, and launched into her first question without missing a beat. Julia, let's talk about your new film. But first, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. There's been some talk about your behavior on set lately. The smile on Robert's face flickered for just a moment. I'm sorry. What exactly are you referring to? Hudson's eyes glinted with something that looked almost predatory. Well, there are reports from crew members about you being, shall we say, difficult to work with. Some pretty harsh words have been thrown around about your attitude behind the scenes. The studio audience fell silent. This was not the direction anyone expected the interview to go, least of all, Julia Roberts herself. Her publicist, sitting just off camera, looked like she might faint. Jennifer, I'm not sure where this is coming from, Roberts replied, her voice maintaining its composure but with a slight tremor of confusion. I've always prided myself on being professional and respectful to everyone I work with. Hudson wasn't backing down. In fact, she seemed to be enjoying Robert's discomfort. Really? Because I have some pretty detailed accounts here that suggest otherwise. Want me to read them? Robert's jaw tightened visibly. I think there might be some misunderstanding here. This isn't what we discussed before the show. Things change. Hudson shrugged, with a casual cruelty that sent a chill through the studio. I think the audience deserves to hear the truth about Hollywood's so-called sweethearts. The veteran actress was clearly struggling to maintain her composure. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair, and her famous smile had completely disappeared. Jennifer, I came here to talk about my film, and to have a pleasant conversation with you. I'm not sure what's happening right now, but this feels like an ambush. Hudson leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smirk playing across her lips. An ambush? Or just some honest journalism? See, this is exactly the kind of reaction people are talking about. The moment someone asks you a real question, you get defensive. The accusation hit Roberts like a slap. Her face flushed with anger, and for the first time in the interview, her voice rose above its usual controlled tone. Defensive? I'm being attacked on live television based on anonymous rumors that you apparently decided to spring on me without warning. Anonymous rumors? Hudson's voice dripped with mock innocence. These are credible sources, Julia. People who work directly with you and have some pretty unflattering things to say about your behavior. Robert stood up slightly in her chair, her body language shifting from confused to genuinely angry. What people? What behavior? You're making vague accusations without giving me any specifics to respond to. This is completely unprofessional. The audience was now completely silent, mesmerized by the train wreck unfolding before them. Camera operators were frantically adjusting their shots to capture every moment of the escalating confrontation. Hudson, sensing she had Roberts on the ropes, pressed her advantage. Unprofessional? That's rich coming from someone who apparently made a costume designer cry because her coffee wasn't the right temperature. That never happened. Robert shot back, her famous composure finally cracking. You're literally making things up. But Hudson was just getting started, and the look in her eyes suggested that what had already transpired was merely the warm-up act for something much worse. The studio lights seemed to burn hotter as Hudson reached for a stack of papers on her desk, waving them like a weapon. Actually, Julia, since you want specifics, let me give you some. I've got testimonies here from 3 different productions. Should I start with the one where you allegedly screamed at a young intern for looking at you the wrong way? Robert's face went white, then flushed deep red. Stop right there. You're crossing a line that you cannot uncross, Jennifer. Or maybe, Hudson continued with venomous glee, we should talk about how you supposedly demanded that an entire craft services table be thrown away because someone touched your personal water bottle. The audience was now completely transfixed by the carnage unfolding before them. Some were pulling out their phones, desperate to capture this historic meltdown. But security quickly motioned for them to put the devices away. This is absolutely insane, Robert said, her voice shaking with rage. Where are you getting this garbage? None of this is true. Hudson's smile turned even more sinister. Oh, but my favorite story is about how you made a grip get down on his hands and knees to clean your dressing room floor because you didn't like how it looked. Is that the kind of behavior we should expect from America's sweetheart? That was the breaking point. Roberts shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the studio floor. Enough! I don't know what sick game you think you're playing, but I'm not going to sit here and let you destroy my reputation with made-up bullshit. The F word seemed to echo through the studio like a gunshot. Hudson's eyes lit up with triumph. She had successfully pushed one of Hollywood's most beloved stars into losing her composure on live television. Language, Julia, Hudson said with mock concern. Is this how you talk to everyone when you don't get your way? Roberts was now visibly trembling with fury. Get my way? You ambushed me. You invited me here under false pretenses and then attacked me with lies. What kind of journalist does that? The kind who asks the hard questions that nobody else will, Hudson replied smoothly. The kind who isn't afraid to hold celebrities accountable for their actions. Accountable for what? For crimes I didn't commit? For behavior that exists only in your twisted imagination? Robert stepped closer to Hudson's desk, her famous smile replaced by a mask of pure rage. You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about how you're sitting here destroying someone's career based on anonymous sources that probably don't even exist. Hudson leaned back in her chair, clearly relishing every moment of Robert's meltdown. They exist, Julia, and they're very real. Maybe the problem isn't my journalism. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle the truth about yourself. The truth? Roberts laughed bitterly. The truth is that you're a pathetic excuse for a talk show host who has to tear down better people to feel relevant. The studio gasped. Even Hudson's crew members were exchanging worried glances. This had gone far beyond a typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This was personal warfare being broadcast live to millions of viewers. Hudson's mask finally slipped, revealing genuine anger underneath. Better people? You think you're better than me because you've been in a few movies? You think your fake smile and your publicist-crafted image make you some kind of saint? I think basic human decency makes me better than someone who gets their kicks from blindsiding guests with character assassination. Roberts fired back. You're a bully hiding behind a microphone. And you're a diva hiding behind a pretty face. Hudson stood up now too, the 2 women facing each other across the desk like gladiators in an arena. At least I'm honest about who I am. Roberts threw her hands up in exasperation. Honest? You call this honesty? You call lying about people on national television honesty? I call it exposing the real Julia Roberts. Hudson shouted back. The one who thinks she's too good for everyone around her. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch. Both women were now shouting, their voices echoing through the studio as crew members scrambled to figure out what to do. The show's producer was frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, but neither woman was paying attention to anything except their mutual fury. You know what? Roberts said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow seemed more threatening than the shouting. I've heard enough of your delusions for one lifetime. Hudson sensed something shifting in the dynamic, but pressed on anyway, making what would prove to be her final, fatal mistake. You want to know what I think, Julia? Hudson said, her voice dripping with contempt. I think you're nothing but a washed-up has-been, who can't handle the fact that your time in the spotlight is over. You're desperate to stay relevant, and when someone calls you out on your bullshit, you can't take it. The words hung in the air like poison. The entire studio fell dead silent. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Hudson had just crossed the ultimate line, and everyone in the room knew it. Roberts' face went through a series of expressions: shock, hurt, and then something that looked almost like pity. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, controlled, and absolutely lethal. "You know what, Jennifer? I came here tonight as a guest on your show. I came here with respect for you, as a fellow entertainer and as a professional. But you've shown me exactly who you really are." Roberts began walking around the desk toward Hudson, who suddenly looked much less confident. "You're not a journalist. You're not even a decent human being. You're a sad, bitter person who gets her thrills from trying to destroy other people." Hudson tried to interrupt. "Julia, No." Roberts's voice cracked like a whip. "You had your turn to talk. You've spent the last 20 minutes lying about me, attacking me, and trying to humiliate me on live television. Now it's my turn." The studio audience was completely captivated. Some were leaning forward in their seats, others had their hands over their mouths in shock. This was television history being made. You want to call me a has-been? Fine. But let me tell you something about being a has-been. At least I earned my place in this industry through talent and hard work. You? You're just a talk show host who thinks tearing down better people will somehow make you matter. Hudson's face was now bright red. "You can't talk to me like that on my own show." "Watch me," Roberts said with ice-cold fury. "You started this war, Jennifer, and you're going to finish it by listening to what I have to say. You think I'm difficult to work with? You know what's actually difficult? Working with people like you who mistake cruelty for strength and think that being mean makes them important." Roberts was now standing directly in front of Hudson's desk, towering over the seated host. "Every single story you told tonight, every single lie you repeated, that says nothing about me, and everything about you. It shows that you're willing to destroy someone's reputation for ratings. It shows that you have no integrity, no ethics, and no soul." "This is my show," Hudson shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. "Security!" "Don't you dare!" Roberts whirled around to face the approaching security guards. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just telling the truth. Something this woman clearly wouldn't recognize if it hit her in the face." The security guards hesitated, unsure of what to do. Roberts wasn't being physically threatening. She was just speaking her mind, and they had no real grounds to remove her. Roberts turned back to Hudson, who was now visibly shaking. "You want to know what the real difference is between us, Jennifer? When people attack me unfairly, I defend myself with facts and dignity. When you feel threatened, you attack innocent people with lies and viciousness. That's the difference between a professional and a bully." Hudson tried one last desperate attack. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Miss Perfect Julia Roberts, who never does anything wrong." Roberts laughed, but it was a sound completely devoid of humor. "Perfect? I never claimed to be perfect. I've made mistakes, I've had bad days, and I've probably been difficult at times, just like every other human being on the planet. But you know what I've never done? I've never sat across from a guest on national television and tried to destroy their life with made-up stories." The truth of Robert's words seemed to hit Hudson like a physical blow. She slumped back in her chair, finally realizing the magnitude of what she had done. "This interview is over," Roberts announced, pulling off her microphone and dropping it on Hudson's desk with a loud thud. "And just so we're clear, I'm not storming out because I'm guilty of anything you've accused me of. I'm leaving because I refuse to give you another second of my time or another moment of entertainment at my expense." Roberts turned to address the camera directly, her composure now completely restored. "To anyone watching this at home, don't believe everything you hear, even on television. Some people will say anything for ratings, and tonight you've seen exactly what that looks like." She started walking toward the studio exit, her head held high. Hudson, apparently unable to accept defeat gracefully, made one final, desperate attempt to regain control. "Julia Roberts, everyone," she called out with fake enthusiasm. "Always the drama queen." Roberts stopped dead in her tracks. She slowly turned around, and the look on her face made Hudson shrink back in her chair. When Roberts spoke, her voice was quiet but carried clearly through the entire studio. "Drama queen? No, Jennifer. I'm just a woman who knows her worth and refuses to let bitter people diminish it. Good luck with your show. Something tells me you're going to need it." With that, Julia Roberts walked off the set with more dignity and grace than anyone thought possible after such a brutal confrontation. The studio audience sat in stunned silence as Hudson tried desperately to regain her composure and continue the show. But it was clear that something had fundamentally changed. The tables had turned completely, and everyone knew it. As Roberts disappeared through the exit doors, the only sound in the studio was the quiet hum of the cameras, still rolling, still capturing every moment of Hudson's humiliation. The host, who had started the evening thinking she could destroy America's sweetheart, had instead revealed her own true character to the world, and there would be no coming back from it.